All we've got to do now is to start pumping.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Fully Inflated Football Podcast. I am your host on this Wednesday, April 7th, Marcus Whitman, and today we've got a pretty nice topic. We're going to be doing the best fits in the NFL draft. I will explain that a little bit later. But we got more than that. We're going to react to the big Sam Darnold to Carolina trade. We also got the mailbag at the end of the show. But before we get into all of that, a little bit of housekeeping here that I want to go through. First things first, pretty big announcement here. That Franchise Guy merch is finally available. You can buy shirts, sweatshirts. I'm going to drop that link in the description below. You can now rep the brand whether you live in Central Park or middle of nowhere, Missouri. You can walk down the street, represent TFG and the brand. So that is now an option for you guys. Wanted to let you know. I'll be plugging that throughout the really the future. And then in case you hadn't heard, it is April, baby, which means it is draft month. And I am so stoked for my live stream or live streams, plural, of the NFL draft. Every pick, every day of the draft. I appreciate you guys considering joining me for the draft. I know you have lots of options out there, but the live stream here is going to be lit, man. I'm going to actually, I think, have highlights this year, assuming I can sort through the copyright stuff before then, but I think I'm ready to commit to that. We will have highlights for the show. My beautiful fiance is going to be joining us, updating the graphics, getting live grades for every pick. It's going to be a blast. So set reminders on your phone for April 29th, draft night, prime time, whatever, and the ensuing days after that. And remind yourself to come back here on YouTube, and I can't wait to see you guys there and consume the draft with all of you. And then lastly, a reminder that this show is brought to you by my Patreon. That is patreon.com/ThatFranchiseGuy. The ultimate dual threat. You can support this show, support the channel, but also get exclusive draft content. So if you enjoy this podcast, my draft content, you will love the stuff available on Patreon as well. We've got plenty of exclusive film breakdowns on there right now. Going to be recording my first team-specific 7-round mock draft today. Going to have all 32 teams done before draft day comes. And then what I'm probably most proud of at this point is my comprehensive NFL draft board. It is awesome this year. We're going to have over 500 players by my calculations right now. So, like, seriously, only, 300 players get drafted? So when I say you can get my analysis and grades on every player in this class, I mean it. Like, every player and every priority free agent pickup as well. So, I mean, seriously, if you enjoy my draft content, you want to support the show, this is the time to do it. April 7th, you get loads of content and support the show in the process. So I appreciate you guys that have signed up and those considering signing up in the future. So let's get into the show. Enough plugging. We are going to start with the big headliner here, the big trade. Sam Darnold, former number 3 overall pick of the New York Jets, is heading to the Carolina Panthers for a 6th-round pick this year, and then a 4th and a 2nd-round pick next year. So let's break this down from both sides here. For the New York Jets, it's a no-brainer. It's a great trade. I love that Joe Douglas has yet again kind of shown an understanding for value coming from that Baltimore Ravens regime. They could have traded Darnold months ago, probably for a lot less, and they didn't. They let the market play out. They let a more desperate team, let's say, give up appropriate value for Sam Darnold. They even played their cards right as far as saying, we like Sam Darnold. We're going to spend the next few months kind of evaluating him, making sure that we are prepared to move on from him. So from the Jets, excellent trade. I thought he was worth a 2nd-rounder this year. They get a 2nd and a 4th next year and a 6th this year. They got tons of picks this year, so I actually kind of like getting some of that future capital in there. And just win all around for the Jets. A+ execution on this trade, in my opinion. That's easy. Now for the Carolina Panthers, this goes a lot deeper. So overall, I like the trade quite a lot for Carolina. And this is not a surprise reaction from those that have been following me on this channel for a while, really going back to the end of the season when it became clear that the Jets were likely to move on from Sam Darnold, I spotted Carolina immediately as a team that made a ton of sense for a lot of reasons. Number one is David Tepper as an owner. I have really applauded his foresight and his vision for the organization coming from Pittsburgh as a minority owner, then purchasing Carolina, to come in and really take the long-term approach and say, sorry, Teddy just freaked out. I don't know. But taking the long-term approach and saying, look, I have realized greatness. I've seen Super Bowls firsthand. I understand that Teddy Bridgewater, nice guy to kind of come in, establish the culture, but he ain't getting us to a Super Bowl. I need a guy with the arm, the athleticism, and just the broad scale approach is really what I've appreciated about the Panthers and why I've been so opportunistic about the future outlook of this team. Now, their free agency, a little bit underwhelming in my opinion, but that's besides the point because this was, to me, back to the big picture here with Carolina. And I appreciate that. So I like the execution here. To me, with Sam Darnold, you can't deny that there is upside in there. And I'll get into Sam Darnold in just a second, but I want to get into sort of the process and why this makes sense for Carolina. And this is kind of a deep dive, so bear with me. So you look at them with that 8th pick, and they were probably, best case scenario, going to be getting the 4th best quarterback in this class, but it was not even that simple. The likely landing spot for the 4th quarterback in this class is likely Atlanta with the 4th pick. And if they're going to trade down, or they might just take that 4th quarterback, but if they're going to trade down Atlanta, they're not going to do it with the Carolina Panthers. They're not going to let an interdivision team go and get a quarterback. There's thousands of reasons why that would not make sense for Atlanta to do. So honestly, the likely outcome is that Carolina was going to get the 5th best quarterback in this class. And the likelihood is that that was going to be Mac Jones. And everything we just described about David Tepper, I'm sure he likes Mac Jones. I think they internally think that he would be an upgraded Teddy Bridgewater. But is he a traitsy player that has a high probability of becoming a great to elite quarterback and taking them to a Super Bowl, which is where this team wants to go? No, not at all. So to me, what they did was said, we like Trey Lance. We like the idea of Trey Lance, but A, we're probably not going to get him. And B, compared to Sam Darnold, it's close-ish as far as we need to put this guy in a new position to kind of develop and learn. And Trey Lance, I've talked a lot about him. He is very much a boom or bust prospect, one of the most unknown quarterbacks that has ever come out of college, if not the most unknown. Coming from North Dakota State, only played 1 year because of COVID. Just his high school background is very unique. Nobody wanted him. Everyone thought he was a receiver or a safety or something. So just a unique prospect with a significant boom or bust aspect, just as the Sam Darnold trade has a boom or bust aspect to it. But the difference is, even if they were going to be able to get Trey Lance, it was going to cost them either the 8th pick with him falling to them, or a trade up where you're probably having to give up this very pick that they gave for Sam Darnold. So to get Sam Darnold, he's just way cheaper. Now the contract is going to be a little more expensive, so you have to factor that in. But ultimately what I think Carolina did was say, we're not going to be able to get Trey Lance. And even if we do, he's going to cost a lot more. And we actually like Sam Darnold, and we think that with now coming to a team that actually has an offensive line, receivers, and a play caller, kind of in inverse order, would be their strengths, because Joe Brady is a phenomenal, young, up-and-coming, well-respected play caller. Those are the things that Sam Darnold did not have for the Jets, right? The Jets were the opposite of what you're supposed to do for a young quarterback. You are supposed to surround these guys with the 3 things I just mentioned, really, and Darnold had none of them for his 3 years with the New York Jets, not to mention his injury history. So Carolina is saying he is basically our draft pick this year. We're going to surround him with talent. He's got the work ethic. He's got the traits. We're going to hope he can forget everything he learned in New York, start fresh, And he's only 23 years old. Let's see where it goes. And it didn't cost them a lot. I think process-wise, this was a great move for Carolina. And I have to say that because a lot of people are bagging on this move and don't think it was worth the risk. And this gets me into the last piece on the Darnold trade conversation is Twitter was just, I couldn't do it, man. I had to sign off. Twitter is not prepared for a conversation about Sam Darnold because there's basically two boats that you're allowed to sit in. You're either in boat A, where you can say that Sam Darnold is a piece of trash, he will never be good, he has no physical talent, and that this was a terrible trade for Carolina because Sam Darnold is obviously terrible and will never be good. Boat B is you are tied to your draft take because you like Sam Darnold coming out, and you think he's a great quarterback and that this is a no-brainer trade for Carolina and that he's going to go on and be a top 10 quarterback. So you're either able to sit on way opposite end of spectrum A or way end of spectrum B. No surprise, Twitter has absolutely no nuance. And it just drives me so insane because neither of these standpoints are true. On the one side, where they think Sam Darnold is literal dog shit, yes, he has been a bad NFL quarterback. But to say he has no talent, he has no chance, and to just ignore the reason he went third in the draft and basically brush off everything that the Jets did to screw this guy over and say he has a 0% chance of working out. It's just not true. There is a shot that Sam Darnold, after leaving Adam Gase and the New York Jets, can get sparked and figure something out. Now, whether that's 10% chance or 70% chance that it works out, that is where the debate should be, is can the Carolina pull this off? Not they have no chance of turning Sam Darnold around. And then on the other boat, honestly, I don't think anyone really sits in that boat where they say Sam Darnold is great and he's going to be an all-star for the Panthers and wow, what a steal. Like I haven't seen anybody say that defend that Sam Darnold has really been good for the Jets. He hasn't. We all have eyeballs. We can tell that it has not worked out to this point for Sam Darnold. But then you got people in this boat where they think Sam Darnold is trash, just attacking these people that don't exist in boat B. It's just insane. There is a balance between these things, and this should be a fun conversation to have, but people just get so hostile about this stuff because they want to tie themselves to the draft takes. I loved Sam Darnold coming out. People that did not, congratulations. To this point, you have been absolutely correct about Sam Darnold. He has turnover issues. He does not process well. He's had accuracy issues. He has not been good. There is no denying that. But I still think that Carolina is a great landing spot for him, and I'm just excited to watch him play football. I don't want to yell about things on Twitter. I'm excited to watch him play football. He's a bright young man, 23 years old. He, to me, is not Josh Rosen. He's not Dwayne Haskins because he has the physical talent. A, he's mobile. And B, he, to me, has a much better work ethic than Rosen and Haskins that have basically been tossed around the league because the coaches just don't like him. So I'm excited to watch Sam Darnold. I think for Carolina, this was pretty much best case scenario. I like that they didn't even have to give up a second rounder this year. So just all around a win-win scenario for both sides. Excited to watch Sam Darnold. Everyone stop screaming at each other on Twitter. And let's move on into today's main segment, which is going to be the best fits for every team in the 2021 NFL Draft. And let me explain kind of what this means. So this is going to be anywhere from a first-round pick to a fifth-round pick. And it's basically just going to be a draft pick to me that would be like an A grade. It would resonate with me. It would be a value pick. It would be a need. It would be a scheme fit that's, it's a projected landing spot for a player in this draft. So it could be anywhere from the 7th pick to a 5th-round pick on this list. But these are just picks that would really resonate with me and be great landing spots for the team and the player. And for the timestamp hive out there, I don't know if I'm going to get timestamps in there for you guys on YouTube, but I'm going to go from, I try to mix this up, I'm going to go from the AFC South working clockwork and then around the compass, and then I'm going to go the NFC South, working around the compass clockwise. So let's start with the Houston Texans, who get no draft talk. That's why I'm starting with them. Poor Texans fans. All they want to do is trade up into the second round and be in a mock draft for once. So here is a potential pick with that third round pick. It is still the 67th pick in the draft. So my pick here is maybe not so exciting for a team that has been waiting forever for a draft pick. But it's going to be Aleem McNeil, who is a defensive tackle out of North Carolina. So when I look at the Panthers depth chart, and just bear with me for a second because I'm going to pull up the Our Lads here so that I can coast through these as I talk. But I look at the Texans depth chart at that interior position, and I see some talent. Charles Menahue, Ross Blacklock, the Vincent Taylor signing solid, P.J. Hall, Malik Collins. But to me, they're lacking something that they've shown to me throughout the offseason that they're really looking for, and that is physicality and almost, frankly, like run defense in that front seven. Kind of that tone setter up front, a big, strong dude that's going to come in and compete in a team that, honestly, that's what they need. They need grinders. They need guys that are going to want to be there and provide a culture and an intensity to, frankly, this defense has really been the focal point of their offseason. And that's a missing piece in this front seven, is that sort of nose tackle, if you will. Now, we don't know exactly what their scheme is going to be. It seems to be sort of a cover two, probably a 4-3 with Lovie Smith coming in there. But Aleem McNeil is a huge missing piece. He is a guy that has lost a lot of weight since he played at North Carolina State. He was a traditional nose tackle, played at like 340 pounds. But he's a great athlete. He was a running back and a linebacker in high school. And that athleticism shows with some of that foot speed. And he's not just a run defender. He is a guy that definitely has the upside of a pass rusher as well. And I've got sort of that second to third round grade on him. I really think he is the sort of perfect way to start this new regime. And frankly, upgrade that front seven. And if you put Aleem McNeil in there with those other pieces kind of around him, because a lot of these guys are more like three technique pass rusher types, Malik Collins, Ross Blacklock, Charles Menahue, P.J. Hall, I really think he'd be a great missing piece in there. You have a lot of athleticism on that D-line too. Then for the Tennessee Titans, this was actually in my last mock draft. Now, some of these are going to be picks from my mock drafts. That's for a good reason. It's because I think they're great landing spots. So almost reinforcing some of those. But Rashad Bateman, if he were to fall to the Tennessee Titans with that 22nd pick, and maybe they could even move up a few spots for him, that receiver spot's a glaring hole. So they did sign, and I struggle with this guy's name, but they did sign Josh Reynolds from the Rams, who knows the system, but he's a third receiver. He is not going to give you what Corey Davis gave you. Rashad Bateman is my number 4 receiver out of Minnesota, and he actually reminds me a ton of Justin Jefferson, who came into the same system in Minnesota last year as the number 2 receiver next to Adam Thielen. And he's got the sort of long, strong arms, the contested catch ability, the run after catch ability, just a perfect scheme fit to plug right in as your number 2 receiver. And I actually think he could have maybe not as productive of a season as Justin Jefferson, but really in that exact slot in the same offense, almost the same position in the draft. What was Jefferson, the 23rd pick? He might have even been the 22nd pick last year. So I love that landing spot. If they can pull it off, they might need to maneuver in the draft just a little bit to make it happen. But I love that. I love that fit a ton. I'm going to try not to say I love that fit for every single one of these, because that's literally the segment, Marcus, is fits that I love. But next we have the Indianapolis Colts in the second round, ending up with Jalen Phillips, who is a very hot topic in this draft. He's an edge rusher out of Miami, and his tape grade, basically who he is as a player, he's the best edge player in this class. But the problem is, he might be a concussion away from having to retire again. And there's a lot of talk about how teams don't have all the medicals that they want this year, and it's been frustrating for teams. And I really think that Jalen Phillips will fall out of the out of the first round into that mid-second round. And at that position, Jalen Phillips is a great spot for the Colts, because the Colts are in a situation where they have the depth, right? Their roster is well balanced. They've got coaching. what they need is more stars, especially on the defense and in that pass rush. You love Buckner, but they need another piece, especially on the edge. And Jalen Phillips is a risky pick. This is not an organization that takes a lot of risks, but just as we saw with the Buckner trade up last year, or just the trade for Buckner, they understand that you need to slot in some risks. You need to swing big at times when appropriate, when the value's there. And I think Jalen Phillips would be the perfect time for the Colts to do it because they've got some starters on that edge, but they need a star pass rush, and that could potentially be Jalen Phillips. And I think there is a better chance than people realize that he will be there in the second round for a team like Indianapolis to take that gamble on a Jalen Phillips. Then the Jacksonville Jaguars, Pat Freiermuth. This has been a frequent mock draft, but their receiver situation, I don't think Marvin Jones is a long-term answer, but you've got DJ Chark, you've got Marvin Jones, you've got Laviska Shenault. What they need is a tight end. They need someone in that short to intermediate part of the game, someone to help with the run blocking. They even hired Penn State's tight end coach. They have 2 picks in the exact value range where Pat Freiermuth is supposed to go. So either that first round pick with the 25th pick or the 33rd pick in the second round. To me, it doesn't matter all that much. But I think Pat Freiermuth would really unlock that offense quite a bit, get another playmaker in there to grow with Trevor Lawrence. And you got his tight end coach. And you know that Urban Meyer's probably going to show a little bit of a Big Ten bias as well, as he has with his coaching staff. Okay, on to the AFC West. And this is the Chargers. Now, it's actually in the 3rd round, and it's Osa Odigizua. I've mocked him. Every time I've done a second-round mock draft, it's been Osa Odigizua, defensive tackle, D-end from UCLA. And I do think in real life there's a chance that he'll be there in that sort of early 3rd-round pick that they have. Now, in my mock drafts, I've had him going in the 2nd because I think that highly of him. But they do need a corner. I think if we're being realistic as far as what probably happens, I don't know if they would take him in the 2nd round. It's just that I would definitely be considering it. But anyway, if they can get him in the 3rd round, that would be one of the best picks in this draft. I mean, he is carbon copy role-wise what Aaron Donald was in Brandon Staley's Rams defense last year. Not going to be as good as Aaron Donald. Not going to be as good of a pass rusher. But I look at that front for the Chargers. You got Linval Joseph in there. And then you have, to me, 2 edge guys that are a little bit hybrid. It's going to be a very hybrid front, just as it was for the Rams. So you have Joey Bosa, who's going to be a little bit of DN, a little bit of outside linebacker there. And then you have Uchenna Nwosu. They signed Kyler Fackrell, so they're kind of looking for that hybrid, almost Leonard Floyd for this defense, which I think those guys can execute with that athleticism. But what they're missing is that defensive end kind of 3-technique, 4-eye spot. And that's Osa Odigizua, who's going to be a phenomenal run defender, really open things up for the rest of these guys. And he's a guy that is going to be utilized very well in this defense. I think Brandon Staley, with a lot of versatile pieces in their front 4 for the Rams last year, that's part of what they did best. And, man, I just would love to see him as a part of this defense. He's an explosive dude. You never want to compare a guy to Aaron Donald because no one's going to be Aaron Donald. But as I compare him to Shelby Harris, who Brandon Staley also worked with in Denver. So I love that fit. All right, I said it again. Anyway, the Chiefs in the 2nd round here, Carlos Basham, perfect spot because you look at their edge group opposite of freaking Frank Clark, who even him, he's probably gone after this year. But opposite of Frank Clark, they're obviously in win now mode. You have Tim Ward, something called a Tim Ward. You have an Austin Edwards. And I think they brought back, Taco Charlton. Yeah, Taco Charlton. They do have Mike Dana. But they have nobody rushing the passer opposite of Frank Clark. And Carlos Basham, I think, has a decent chance of being there in the 2nd round. And he's going to be a day 1 starter. It's exactly what they wanted in Alex Okafor, but just didn't really get that consistency from him, had some injury issues. Carlos Basham, big dude, 280 pounds, great pass rusher, can kind of do it from anywhere, great run defender. I think as a day 1 impact at a massive glaring position of weakness for them, couldn't be a much better spot for Carlos Basham in the 2nd round than the Kansas City Chiefs. Then the Las Vegas Raiders. This has been the mock draft spot for Tevin Jenkins the last couple of mock drafts. I have no other words for this segment other than, wow, perfect fit. I would love this pick. But it's just the reality of the segment we're doing. They let Trent Brown basically leave. They gave him up for, a 5th round pick. They blew it. They kind of made him unhappy with the doctors, and he wanted out. They now need a right tackle. Tevin Jenkins is an incredible, nasty run blocker. He is the definition of a Gruden grinder. Now, he's not an athletic freak, but that's okay because the Raiders have shown that they don't really value athletic traits in the first round. Clelin Ferrell, Jonathan Abrams. They took Damon Arnett last year. They want the physical nasties, and that is Tevin Jenkins, now an actual pick of value for them at a position of value that is not a reach for the first time in Gruden's goddamn first-round drafting career. But, outstanding spot. Tevin Jenkins, he isn't an elite athlete to run some of these, outside zone-oriented offenses, which makes them an even better fit here because they love inside zone. They love power. They run a bunch of different concepts, and Tevin Jenkins is going to be able to handle it, plug in day one at right tackle. And you're never going to make up for kind of blowing the Trent Brown situation, but for a cheap right tackle for 5 years, you could do a hell of a lot worse than Tevin Jenkins in the first round. Would be the best pick in the John Gruden era, especially in the first round. Then the Denver Broncos, I look at this roster and all they need is a quarterback. It is almost frustrating at this point that they've shown a lack of aggressiveness to target some of these quarterbacks and really reinforce faith in Drew Lock. And I don't think you need to completely write off Drew Lock. I think you give him a chance. But with that 9th pick, whether they trade up or they fall in their lap, I don't even know exactly how this all plays out, as none of us do. But if they could get either Justin Fields or Trey Lance, it's a win for them. They have receivers. Their O-line isn't perfect, but it's workable. They have a defense with a great defensive coach. They have tiny needs in there, but they plug the corner needs in free agency. They need a linebacker, but you can find a linebacker later. So to me, it's use that 9th pick. You are so close. Go and get either Trey Lance or Justin Fields and let them duke it out with Drew Lock. And whoever emerges the champion, be it to the victor, whatever that saying is. But, let them compete, get a freaking quarterback here, and go win playoff games. It's almost that simple for me for Denver. I don't know if it's a matter of them falling to them at 9, if the Niners take Mac Jones and then they can maybe have a better chance at Fields or Lance, or if Fields goes to the Niners, where I think he does, move up, go get Trey Lance, do whatever it takes. This roster is good to go. I don't care about how many picks you have to give up to make it happen, honestly, because this roster is nuts. It is so nuts. I love this Broncos roster. Go get a freaking quarterback. Don't let Drew Lock waste this roster. And if he wins the competition, because he's got those physical traits, outstanding. Trade Trey Lance next year, get your picks back, and move forward. But you got to do more than just Drew Lock on this roster. That's really all it's about for me. Then the Baltimore Ravens. This is no surprise to anybody that's watched basically any of my draft content that includes the Baltimore Ravens. Cam Sample. Now, the picks that they have make it a little bit difficult because back end of the second round might be a little bit rich, but I also don't know if he's going to be there with their compensatory third round pick because they don't have a mid-third round pick. They gave that up for Yannick Ngakoue. So I do think that it might be a third round trade up, or maybe they trade down with that second round pick and kind of finagle it a little bit. But to me, Cam Sample is a Baltimore Raven. He is a power rushing outside linebacker. He is literally in the mold of Pernell McPhee, who they clearly love. He's had a second stint, now almost a third stint there. That is the style of pass rusher they're looking for, that Matthew Judon kind of big, power rushing outside linebacker. They love to blitz, so they don't need, honestly, like a Yannick Ngakoue. It didn't make a ton of sense there. It didn't really work out. They just want guys that are going to pressure the quarterback, eat holes, eat lanes, pressure, push the pocket. That is Cam Sample in a nutshell. Has a nasty long arm bull rush technique. He's got good athletic traits. Big fan of this fit. I have been for a long time, so no surprise there. Whether it's late second, early third, maybe some draft manipulation, maybe a reach. I don't know. I don't care. Love that fit. The Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I struggled with this one because I didn't want to do Najee Harris with the first pick, 24. I've talked about this time and time again. So I wanted to mix it up a little bit, but still, Najee Harris in the first round to me would be a great person to slide in on this list. So I settled on Marco Wilson, Florida corner, actually kind of falling to them in the third round. I think it's possible because he's got some sort of maturity concerns, sort of a lack of development, his technique, and just sort of he had a boneheaded penalty. But there are very few players, especially at the cornerback position, that move like Marco Wilson. I mean, honestly, just watching him, the only players I could think that I've seen move like this were Jair Alexander, Dante Jackson for the Panthers. You know, J.C. Jackson came to my mind a little bit, but I don't think J.C. Jackson's as fast as Marco Wilson. And then Denzel Ward came to my mind. And then there was a kind of a low-end player that does move really well. Keon Crossan came to my mind. But usually when you get these players that didn't really produce, but they have these crazy workouts, they're stiff or there's massive problems with their game. It's really not the case with Marco Wilson. But there are some of those concerns. It's a pretty deep corner class, so I do think there's a chance he falls to late second, early third, maybe some draft manipulation there, or even to their mid-round pick, mid of the third round pick with the 87th pick. But Marco Wilson fits the scheme to me. They just let Steven Nelson go, who's kind of got a similar skill set, similar size, really good athlete, runs some man because they do like to blitz, and also mix in some match zone coverage where I think he'll be very comfortable. Really like the scheme fit, and I think that Marco Wilson, who might have some maturity concerns, you put him with Mike Tomlin, who will kind of get him on the right path. I love, God, I'm saying it again. You get the point. Marco Wilson to the Steelers. Then the Cleveland Browns, I actually went into the late third round here. They have a pair of late third round picks with the 89th and 91st picks. And to me, they're missing a little bit of explosiveness in that offense. Now, I know that they're hoping that they get it with Odell Beckham, but I don't really want to lean on Odell if I don't have to. And even then, I'd like to have kind of a third piece because defenses are going to be focusing on Odell Beckham, right? They're going to be doubling him. They're going to be slanting safeties his way. Dwayne Eskridge is the fit here, either with the 89th pick or the 91st pick in the third round. He's a dude that he can burn vertically. He separates quick and long, and he's got good hands. He's got good run after the catch. And this would be the perfect spot for him to just kind of slide in as the wide receiver 3. You got Jarvis in the slot doing his thing. You got your kind of alpha Odell Beckham. And then you have Dwayne Eskridge to just kind of rotate in there in this system that we've seen be able to scheme open these deep separators like this, the Shanahan offense, if you will. Outstanding. Then the Cincinnati Bengals, I really struggled with this one because it just comes down to what they do in the first round. Because if they go with Jamar Chase, they got to go O-line here. So I'm looking at, maybe a Jalen Mayfield or maybe even a Quinn Miners in the second round. But where I ended up settling here, because I do think they go with Penei Sewell. I think that's the right decision. There's so much receiver depth, whereas the offensive line depth, I'm not guaranteed an upgrade after the first round. So I think they go Sewell in the first, and then in that world, Kadarius Toney in the second round is a phenomenal scheme fit here. You get kind of what you would get with Jamar Chase in this offense because you've got your true slot with not Tate. What's his freaking name? I like this player too. I'm surprised I can't. Tyler Boyd. Got your true slot, and then you have your sort of vertical jump ball Mike Williams type in T. Higgins. And I still think an alpha like a Jamar Chase would be an awesome fit on this offense. But they just so desperately need offensive line help. Anyway, you bring in Kadarius Toney, and he reminds me a lot, and Brandon Ayuk is the name I'm searching for here, of Brandon Ayuk from San Francisco as a dude in this Shanahan offense. Again, like half the league runs this freaking system, so you're trying to replicate the best, and that's the Niners run it the best, at least systematically. They've had injuries and all this stuff, and they don't have quarterbacks. But anyway, stylistically, systematically, the Niners know what the hell they're doing with this thing. And Kadarius Toney, I think, can be very Brandon Ayuk-esque, where you scheme him open, you use that speed and quickness to separate, and you put the ball in his hands in creative ways. Kadarius Toney is, in a lot of ways, a slot player, so he will have a little bit of conflict with Tyler Boyd there, but he's just so much faster and so much more of a weapon. So I really love Kadarius Toney in the second round to the Bengals, assuming they go with a Penei Sewell. But at the same time, you could still go offensive line in the second and maybe go with like a Dwayne Eskridge in the third for them. Okay, the AFC East here, the Buffalo Bills. I just picture Azeez Ojulari here because my comp for him is Jerry Hughes. I think where they're picking at the end of the first round, that's kind of the dead, like right on where Azeez Ojulari should go. So this just makes sense to me. He can learn from Jerry Hughes, and you have A.J. Epinesa opposite of him, so he's going to rotate in there. I do think as a young player he's got to grow, but with this coaching staff, with McDermott there, I really believe in him to essentially replace Jerry Hughes as sort of a low-end number one rusher in a year or two. Pretty straightforward there. Then the New England Patriots. This is another one that won't be a surprise. I've talked about this very in-depth on this show and mock drafts before, but the New England Patriots ending up somehow with Rondale Moore. And it could be because they have the 15th pick in both rounds. And I think that's too early to take him in the first and too late to get him in the second. So either a trade down in the first round or a trade up in the second round. I think he goes somewhere in that 20 to 40 mark because he's only 5'7". But his ability with the ball in his hands is unparalleled in this class, other than Jamar Chase, who's just a different conversation. And I've talked about this Patriots offense being a situation where I want to see them get rid of the ball quick, have run after the catch guys that are impossible to tackle, quick separators for Cam Newton. And the beauty is, Rondale Moore can actually be a vertical threat as well long term, but he's the perfect fit with Cam Newton right now for what you're trying to do right now. And I'm trying to think of other words to say other than perfect fit, and I love this pick, but I got nothing because that's all this is the best fit for the New England Patriots is Rondale Moore at some point in the draft. I don't know if it's a 15, though. It's a little early. Okay, the Miami Dolphins, another one for my mock drafts, but Joseph Osai in the second round, pick 36 in the second round. I don't think Osai ends up in the first. There's a chance, but it's a pretty kind of sort of a deep group, honestly. And in real life, I think Jason always, someone's going to take him, which is going to push Joseph Osai down. And he, to me, is someone that can be a traditional pass rusher. My comp for him is actually Clay Matthews, though, who was a little bit more hybrid in a 3-4 defense. And he's like a better version of Kyle Van Noy because I like his run defense and I really like his sort of instincts to drop into coverage. He actually played off-ball linebacker at first for Texas, and then he converted to edge, which is part of why he's so raw. So I like that he can do all of those versatile things that Miami looks for from an off-ball linebacker, and he's got the athleticism to do it at a high level. But I actually think he would be their best edge rusher as well. He has more athletic traits and, frankly, more moves and power than anyone on that roster as their edge outside linebacker guys. So to me, you upgrade the pass rush a little bit. You keep the hybrid ability of a Kyle Van Noy who they released. And I think that's about where he's going to go, is late first, early second. I think this one's pretty likely, to be honest. Then the New York Jets. We're going to dip all the way into the 5th round here. But this is under the assumption that they take Zach Wilson, which I think is very safe to say. Dax Milne, a receiver out of BYU in the 5th round here, being the best fit for the New York Jets. I I want to see him reunited with Zach Wilson. They were college roommates, and they had almost an identical connection to, remember Aaron Rodgers and Jordy Nelson with those back shoulders and the timing routes and the ball placement and the kind of contested catch ability, just working the sidelines like gurus. That was the chemistry that Zach Wilson and Dax Milne had together. And he's coming out as a junior. He's a decent athlete. He's not a burner. He's not as tall or as fast as Jordy Nelson was, so I don't think he'll be as good. But if you could get him in there with the Jets, who now have Corey Davis as your one, you have your slot, you have, Mims, Denzel Mims, who you're hoping takes a step up. And then you have the ideal fourth receiver in Dax Milne with the chemistry established with Zach Wilson. If Mims can't stay healthy like last year, or Corey Davis, if something happens and you got to put him on the field or you're just getting those rotations, he could, to me, plug in as perfect depth in the 5th round and be there for a long time with Zach Wilson as just kind of a glue guy for this offense. So that's the AFC. I am going to take a quick break, get some water in me, and then I'm going to come back and do the NFC best fits, and then we'll do the mailbag. And now on to the NFC best fits for the 2021 NFL Draft. Starting in the NFC South, the New Orleans Saints. And this was a really tough one because they don't have a ton of glaring needs. And I settled on Amon-Ra St. Brown at the end of the 2nd round, pick 260 here. So St. Brown is an interesting evaluation. I'm not crazy about him, but I love him in this spot. As a number 2 to Michael Thomas, there's never going to be an expectation that he can become an elite player. All he has to do is be a quality number 2 receiver, be a great route runner, which I think is his best trait, is quick separation. And he has really shown to be a physical player as well. He's going to run block like crazy, which is going to be added value to this team, especially right away, because I think the run game is going to be big for them. So I think he would slot right in as the number 2 receiver. Emmanuel Sanders is not a bad comparison for Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he's a more physical. He's like a cross between maybe, best case, a cross between Emmanuel Sanders and Juju Smith-Schuster. So I think schematically and value-wise, this would be a fantastic landing spot for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Then we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I have them here in the 2nd round. So in my mock drafts, I've had them getting Jason Owe. In reality, it's not going to happen. I mean, the NFL values him too much in those athletic traits. But still, same idea. Looking at youth and developmental upside on that defensive line, this team has literally no needs. So to plan for the future a little bit, but also get a player that can be a bit of a missing piece for that defensive line here. And the guy I'm talking about here is Milton Williams in the 2nd round. This guy is an absurd athlete out of Louisiana Tech. And in this system, he would be that 3-4 defensive end, which next to Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh with Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul on the other side, you put Milton Williams as the other defensive end there. I think they play Akeem Nunez-Roches in that role a lot. They lost, what's his name? Let me pull up the depth chart. I don't see him on their depth chart. Let's see, releases / cap casualties. What's the guy I'm thinking of? Oh, he's been there forever. Name's on the tip of my tongue. He's Golston, William Golston. So kind of that role right there. I love the spot. Pretty straightforward. Check this dude out. He's a freak athlete. Then the Atlanta Falcons getting Trayvon Merrick in the 2nd round, 2.35, the 35th pick. I don't think he's a true first-round player. If he goes in the 1st round, it's because of positional scarcity. I don't think it's all that good of a safety class, but I could see him getting slid down right into that 2nd round range. The Falcons have no safeties. So simply put, to get the best safety in this class in the 2nd round would be a home run pick for the Falcons. Don't know if it's going to happen, but this is kind of a best-case scenario thing anyway. Then the Carolina Panthers, who got a lot of run time earlier. To me, if they could get Kyle Pitts to fall to them after they went and got Sam Darnold, that is a massive W. There's other positions they could go, whether it's tackle or receiver or whatever. But to me, getting Sam Darnold the most help possible. I've actually executed this a couple times in our mock drafts of them getting Pitts at 8 and trading for Sam Darnold. So basically, to get this to happen, you got to have the Falcons pick get traded. So let's say that Trey Lance goes fourth, whether the Broncos come up or the Falcons take Trey Lance, which I say is about 50-50. I think the Falcons could potentially stay put and take Kyle Pitts at 4. I think the Bengals are either going Chase or Sewell. And then the Dolphins, I just don't. I mean, Pitts would be incredible for them, but that, again, it would basically eliminate Mike Gesicki from your offense, which is one of your better assets. So I think the Dolphins would love to get Jamar Chase at 6 is kind of my projection there. And then you have the Lions at 7, probably not going to be a spot for Kyle Pitts. So I think the way you look at it, any one of those teams, someone could come up for Kyle Pitts. He's a better player than the 8th pick in the draft, but he is a tight end, so he could slide down, especially if 4 quarterbacks go in the first 8 picks. And then even Mac Jones could potentially sneak in there if the Niners like him or whatever. So it's possible. I think there's about a 40% chance that Kyle Pitts is there, and that would be just absolutely incredible because you've got DJ Moore, who I think can be a number 1. You've got Robbie Anderson, who is your deep threat. And then you can find another piece in the 2nd or 3rd round pretty easily. It's a really deep class. But Kyle Pitts is that tight end. They got nobody. Oh, my God. Those playmakers for Sam Darnold, if he's not going to succeed, or if he's going to succeed, it's going to be with that unit with Joe Brady calling plays. So that's a dream spot for Carolina Panthers. Then the Seattle Seahawks onto the NFC West. And the fit here is Benjamin St-Juste or St-Juste. It's probably St-Juste. And it's tough for the Seahawks. They had 2 picks for me to look at. And I think with that 2nd round pick, it has got to be a corner. But I also think they're very likely to trade down. I don't think Pete Carroll and John Schneider are happy with having just 2 picks in this draft. So I think trading down in the 2nd round makes a ton of sense for them. And then target a corner. And another guy is Afetu Melifonwu, who could be there in a third round trade down scenario. But I actually like Benjamin St-Juste better. Now, a note on St-Juste is I actually personally, if I was running the show, love him as a strong safety Justin Simmons comp. I tweeted this out, but his physical measurements combined with kind of his play style as far as his short area quickness and his elite tackling ability, he is probably the best tackling corner in this class. I love him as a strong safety, but I don't think the NFL is going to wake up to that. We'll see. I mean, that'd be incredible. So personally, I like him better as a strong safety, but in reality, I think he does get drafted as a corner, and in this Seattle 3 defense that they're going to stick to, they need another option other than Trey Flowers. I don't know if St-Juste will be better in year 1. It looks like they missed out on bringing Quentin Dunbar back. So to me, trade down, get more picks, and draft the perfect scheme fit in Benjamin St-Juste. Okay, San Francisco landing local man Paulson Adebo out of Stanford, just coming up the street to San Francisco. They really need another piece in that secondary as well. Paulson Adebo is a scheme fit, assuming they stick with the sort of 4-3 zone-heavy defense. I love Paulson Adebo. And the Niners have gotten away, assuming they stick with sort of the same scheme that has worked for them. They are from the Seattle tree, but they mix in a lot of man and man-match concepts and a lot of off coverage as well. It's a part of why Jason Verrett had such a great year there. And to me, that is Paulson Adebo's game. I don't think he's an amazing press corner, but I think he can press. I think he can run the system extremely well. I think he's one of the sleepers in this class as well. I don't see him getting to the 3rd round. His tape is outstanding. He's a great athlete. He's spent a year getting in shape. So I'm a big fan of Paulson Adebo's game in general. I think he's definitely one of my guys in this class. But for San Francisco to get him still after trading up for Justin Fields, wow. Then we have the Arizona Cardinals, and I had some fun with this one. I went with Jalen Waddle. So they have the 16th pick, And it's not likely that he's there. I think there's a chance, with the depth of this receiver class, with all these quarterbacks going early, with the emphasis on offensive tackles as well, there's a shot. There is a shot that Jalen Waddle's there. But I think more likely it's a scenario where they have to trade up with, maybe Dallas. They like Surtain or J.C. Horn. They feel good about their chances of getting one of them, or maybe even Farley. Maybe they trade down, or the Giants at 11. Maybe the Cardinals can pull this off. But I love DeAndre Hopkins. I absolutely love him. But to lean on the combination of A.J. Green, Christian Kirk, Andy Isabella, to be that vertical presence that I've talked about this, Kyler Murray is not a good intermediate thrower. Where he excels is launching that sucker down the field. Just like Russell Wilson has his deep threats, I think Kyler Murray has a super similar skill set. I think that lack of height has proven for both of those players to be an issue for these guys to kind of load up and hit the middle of the field. So give him elite perimeter options. He's already got DeAndre Hopkins, but they love to work him with that stick work as well in the short game. Jalen Waddle is a catch and run threat in this offense that loves spread concepts, bubble screens, plug and play Jalen Waddle right there, but also as that deep threat. Whoo, man, if the hype train hadn't already left the station, which it has, it would become a speed train. It would be from a locomotive to a speed train that no one would be able to get on that hype train if they got Jalen Waddle. So I had a little fun with there. It could be a miraculous fall with the 16th pick, or they come up for him, but I'd be licking my chops, man. Then the LA Rams getting one of my biggest sleepers, if not my biggest sleeper in this class, Monty Rice in the 3rd round, which I've got him as a 2nd-round player, but I think he probably goes in the 3rd or the 4th. So he to me is an outstanding fit here. Their linebackers have played valiantly, but I don't think any of them have the coverage upside of a Monty Rice. I know that they don't. So I'm just pulling up their depth chart here. You've got Micah Keyzer, who's a smart player but lacks athleticism. And then you've got like Troy Reeder, just kind of a balanced dude. I actually don't know that much about Troy Reeder, but I know he probably played better than anyone. And then Kenny Young does have the athletic traits. I kind of like Kenny Young, but he hasn't maybe had the development track that they would hope. So Monty Rice is, in a lot of ways, like Corey Littleton as well, who they probably miss, who had an awesome year for them. So to get him in the 3rd round would be a slam dunk pick for a roster that doesn't have a ton of needs. I mean, I think they could go with a guard in the 2nd round. And then if you go Monty Rice in the 3rd, boom. Okay, into the NFC North now. The Green Bay Packers. So I went with Quinn Miners in the 2nd round. And I don't know exactly where he's going to end up going in real life. I think it's in the 2nd round somewhere. And I went with pick 30 here for Quinn Miners, but maybe it's a trade-up scenario. They have a couple 4th-round picks, so maybe you package one or a combination of picks to move up maybe 15, 16 spots. But a lot of reasons this works perfectly here. So he can play center or a guard. They love versatile guys like that. I don't know if they're convinced that Elton Jenkins is the future center or keep him at guard. They've even entertained him at tackle, so I think they would like to keep the door open to have Elton Jenkins be either guard or tackle potentially. But anyway, Quinn Miners fits this for so many reasons. For one, he was literally born in the woods of Wisconsin. Like, he went to UW Whitewater. That's where he got in shape, was just training in the woods. So just as far as the Packers kind of drafting guys that will have no problem playing in the cold and being a Green Bay Packer and living in a small town, he fits that portion of the Packers draft strategy. But beyond that, they let the first-team All-Pro center go in Corey Linsley, so that center has become a need. And then on top of that, Quinn Miners he's not some random white dude born in the woods. Like, he is pretty much like Bigfoot born in the woods. He is a freak athlete, Quinn Miners is. He ran like a 4.9. He's got a great first step. In this offense, which is all about outside zone, climbing to the next level, moving pockets, in that center position, I mean, my God, he could actually crush it. Even if they took Quinn Miners in the 1st round, it's a little bit early. I'm almost talking myself into this even more. So Quinn Miners would be just a folk legend for the Green Bay Packers. I don't know if it makes sense as far as where they're picking for them to get him, but who knows? Maybe maybe they feel so good about him that they were like, we're going to let Corey Linsley go, and we're just going to pick Quinn Miners in the first round. I wouldn't be stunned because the Packers kind of beat to their own drum in the draft. Then the Minnesota Vikings, and I dipped into the fourth round here. Part of that is they don't have any second-round picks. And maybe you spent a third-round pick on this player, but I have a fourth-round grade on him, and it's Jamar Johnson. This is one of Brett Coleman's dudes at safety, but my comp for him is Anthony Harris. So there you go. They lost Anthony Harris. Now, they did sign Xavier Woods from Dallas, who's probably going to start. But Jamar Johnson, it was only a one-year contract. I think Jamar Johnson, just like Anthony Harris, take a little bit of time, get up to speed. The beautiful thing about Jamar Johnson, and by the way, Harrison Smith isn't getting any younger either, but the beautiful thing about Jamar Johnson is his versatility. He can do a little bit of single high stuff, which the Vikings do like some cover 3, but they love some cover 4. They like to do the man match stuff with their safeties. They like to move these guys around. They like safeties that can come into the box, do a little bit of everything. That's Jamar Johnson in a nutshell. And maybe that ends up being a third-round pick. I don't know exactly where they need to take him, to be honest, because he's kind of a late riser in the draft process. But love this spot, Jamar Johnson to the Vikings. Then the Detroit Lions struggled with this one. You want a guy that's going to be willing to be there, a tough dude. And I went with Penei Sewell with the 7th pick. So the dream scenario here is the Bengals take Jamar Chase, and then maybe the Dolphins take Kyle Pitts, which sounds a little unlikely, but I really don't think the Dolphins are in on Penei Sewell. That's what I've heard from some inside sources, is that they weren't crazy about him. It's part of why they moved down. Maybe they would still take him at 6. I think they should if he's there, talking about the Dolphins. But I don't think it's out of the question at this point for Penei Sewell to fall. And if there are questions about him, it's technique. And Dan Campbell is a blocking coach specialist. Everywhere he goes, the blocking gets better. And you put him at right tackle, you improve the entire offensive line, and they could actually be like a elite run game, and DeAndre Swift would be amazing behind this group. So you'd give them at least an identity on that offensive line. That's kind of my goal for Detroit, is just get an identity for this team. It's very clearly the direction they're going as well with the Dan Campbell hire. So I went with Penei Sewell. I don't know. It's a tough team to come up with a great spot because we don't even know what kind of team they really are, other than they want to be a physically minded football team. Then the Chicago Bears. I don't hate Mac Jones in the first round. I thought about that, but it seems to me like they're going to roll with Andy Dalton. But one pick that I really like here is Ronnie Perkins in the 2nd round, so pick 52. And I know the Bears don't necessarily need an edge, but you got Khalil Mack. He's got to be at least 30 at this point. Let's see. Khalil Mack is, where are we? Where's the Bears? So Khalil Mack is 30. And then Robert Quinn he's just not the long-term answer there. And Ronnie Perkins is quick, he's powerful, he fits this scheme as a 3-4 outside linebacker, and you can rotate him. You can play him on early downs and expect him to defend the run with Robert Quinn kind of getting those breathers. He provides injury insurance, and most importantly, he just is a super high upside player that I think, paired with this surrounding situation, with those guys in front of him, with Quinn and Mack as mentors, with the boom and the thunder and lightning approach, which Perkins has potential to be a hybrid type of player between Robert Quinn and Khalil Mack, because he's got the power, he's got the bend, he's got the speed. So I just think he would be a future star player, almost in the light of like a Justin Houston type of player, being groomed with this staff and these players in front of him. So I just would love to see his career trajectory with that opportunity. And they're a team that it's kind of tough to come up with needs for, because their roster's pretty good other than that quarterback position. And they're probably going to go tackle in the first round, it seems like, if they don't go quarterback. So then we were going to wrap up with the NFC East. NFC least, save the worst for last, I guess. But it's a lot of first-round fits here. So the Dallas Cowboys, it's Patrick Surtain with the 10th pick. They're a team that doesn't have a ton of needs, so I wanted it to be a corner. I know they're going to take a corner in the first round. It might be the most telegraphed pick at this point, is the Dallas Cowboys are taking corner, and it's probably Patrick Surtain at pick 10. to me, he's either the first or the second best defensive player in this class with Micah Parsons. I think he's incredibly underrated, especially in this system. I mean, seriously, they hired Dan Quinn to run the cover 3 Seattle press man system, and that is Patrick Surtain. In a nutshell, it's a dream spot. Let's move on. The New York Giants, I've got Micah Parsons with the 11th pick for them. So I'm not going to talk down on Blake Martinez, but let's just be honest. You can do better. You can do better. You can get better athletes. You can get better cover players. You can get better blitzers. You can get more physical, violent run defenders. It's just the way it is. And the way I watch this defense, the way they use these linebackers, I would really like to see how they would get Micah Parsons involved, because they were one of the few teams that would actually take a Tay Crowder for this defense, who is a off-ball middle linebacker type. And they actually played him at edge in that 3-4 defense in a lot of their stunts and a lot of their games. So I think that if you want a situation where Micah Parsons can, number one, be sheltered by a defense that really uses their safeties well. They've got 3 good safeties there, and they wouldn't be asking Parsons to be this deep cover player, for one. And he could kind of slowly develop in that role. But put him in a situation where he can do a little bit of everything, like everyone keeps saying, put him at edge. Well, I think the Giants would occasionally do that really well in that system, because we saw guys like Tay Crowder do that. It's part of the reason they had so much success against Russell Wilson was their stunts and contain game by using actual off-ball linebackers at edge. So I think just with this creative defense, I want to shout out the defense coordinator for the Giants. I think it's Patrick Graham. I know it's Patrick Graham. I don't need to look that up. I got to shout out Patrick Graham. His creativity with these linebackers, not just what we described with a Tay Crowder, which would be a massive upgrade getting Micah Parsons, but to kind of shelter a guy like Blake Martinez and make him look like a really good linebacker is also really impressive. So Micah Parsons, if they could get him at 11, which I think is certainly possible, I would say Detroit and Denver at 7 and 9 are their biggest threats there. So it's possible. It's definitely possible. It's a dream scenario for the Giants. And then the Washington football team, I've got Jamin Davis with that 51st pick in the second round. And you could also go Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Owusu-Koramoah. I think I got that right. In the first round. But basically, that's the need on that defense, is that outside linebacker. I like Cole Holcomb, but he needs a running mate. So it could be JOK in the first round. But Jamin Davis, I would love to see what Ron Rivera could do with this dude. He is a freak athlete. If you haven't checked out my top 10 linebackers video from yesterday, by the way, check it out. I'm really proud of it. Jamin Davis was 4th in that video. So if you could pair him as that outside linebacker with this staff, I think he could be an electric football player in that system. And then the last team here, the Philadelphia Eagles, to me, it's pretty straightforward here. They moved down. They got a future first-round pick, which will probably be used to package to get a quarterback next year, is my guess. But it's Devontae Smith with the 12th pick here. Just kind of, I think that's the way the board is going to play out, and I think they know that either Smith or Waddle will be available to them. And Waddle would be nice. Waddle would be very nice. But you do have that speed. You got a lot of speed threats in there, to be honest. They took a bunch of dudes last year. You got Jalen Reagor there, who you're hoping can take a step up in the same kind of role that Waddle would play. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but you're hoping that works out. You spent a first-round pick on him. But Devontae Smith is more of that traditional number one. I compare him to Stephon Diggs, the route runner, the release, the catch in traffic. That, to me, is a little more of what Philadelphia is missing. I think they have those speed elements in there that, if deployed well, can take that step up with potentially with Jalen Hurts, but maybe quarterback of the future. So Devontae Smith, to me, can be that sort of first read type of dude. I think having a more consistently open first read, which I do think Devontae Smith gets open better than Jalen Waddle as far as the full route tree being kind of the focal point of the passing game, if that makes sense. I think Jalen Waddle is more of a secondary option, lethal weapon type of dude, is potentially a higher ceiling player. But anyway, the Eagles need someone that can get open on a first read, and that is Devontae Smith, because Jalen Hurts, if his first read is getting bottled up all the time, I'm sorry, I watched every Jalen Hurts game last year. he needs that first read to be open. He is first read. Is it there? No. I'm going to run. So to have Devontae Smith open a lot is going to help his development a ton. And even for a potential future rookie, that's the piece they need. So I hope I just sold the Eagles fans a little bit on that trade down, because I think long-term this picture makes a ton of sense. You get Devontae Smith and you increase the likelihood that you're going to get a franchise quarterback in, say, 2 years, whether it's Jalen Hurts working out or the guy you draft next year. But I love this move overall for the Eagles. I think it's going to be really well executed, and I really think this is going to be the guy, assuming the board plays out the right way. So there are the best fits for the 2021 NFL Draft. We're going to wrap up the show with the Patreon mailbag. So again, guys, this show is brought to you by Patreon. It's my Patreon, patreon.com/thatfranchiseguy. You can support the show, get exclusive draft content, and bonus, you get to submit questions for this show right here. So let me just get some water real quick. Glug, 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 glug. Let's get into it. Starting with a question from Patrick Hill. Personnel aside, if you were an NFL owner and could cherry pick a GM, head coach, OC, and DC, who are you going with? Okay, my GM is probably going to be, I'm between Eric DeCosta and Chris Ballard. And I think I'm going to go, that's so close. That's so close. Man, I think I lean Chris Ballard. But Eric DeCosta, Chris Ballard, just as GMs, because a lot of the other top front offices, I think it's the combination of coach and GM, but just the GMs, those are the two guys that really come to my mind. But I think I'm going to go with Chris Ballard. Head coach, I'm taking Kyle Shanahan. I just am. And he's my offensive coordinator. And then defensive coordinator, I mean, can I get Belichick? If I could get Belichick and Kyle Shanahan together, that's it. That's maybe a little bit too much. Let's say an actual guy that is just a defensive coordinator. Oh, boy. The problem is a lot of the best defense coordinators become head coaches, so a guy that's stuck as a defense coordinator, that gets a little bit harder. Maybe, God, these guys keep getting head coach jobs, though. Who's the Saints defensive coordinator? Let me see 1 second. Dennis Allen, maybe? Maybe Dennis Allen. I'm just kind of sorting through. I'm really impressed with Patrick Graham right now for the Giants. We gave him a shout out. That's tough. I think I might go. Actually, Todd Bowles a unique scheme fit. A little more aggressive. I'm going to say either Dennis Allen or Todd Bowles would be my defensive coordinator of choice, assuming I have to stick with a non-head coach, because otherwise you're getting into Belichick, Vic Fangio, Zimmer, who I would rather have, or some of these recent hires like Brandon Staley and Robert Saleh. Okay, from Kerr Hernandez, how do you watch tape on O-linemen? What kind of things do you want to see? So for tackles, I'm looking at foot speed and technique in their kick slides, and then you want to see the overall hand usage. It's a combination of tactful. Watch Brett Coleman's dive into Tevin Jenkins. He really did a good job showing sort of hand technique, which is really important. But you also want to see the punches get landed inside the strong arms. And then guard, I'm much more looking at anchor, the punching again, get off in the run game, kind of same thing with center. And then you get into like blitz recognition and stuff, which is important, but those are much more coachable things. Okay, from Ethan, rank these 4 left tackles: Teron Armstead, Laramie Tunsil, Tyron Smith, and Ronnie Stanley. I'm going to go Armstead, Stanley, Tunsil, Tyron Smith in that order. From Taylor, if Sewell's off the board when Miami picks, who do you think would be better to get, Chase or trade down a couple spots? Well, I don't think they're trading down because that would be really dumb of them. If they didn't have a plan at 6 to take a guy, why the hell did they trade up in the first place from 12? So I will say that. I think that they're either going with Jamar Chase. I don't know how they feel about Penei Sewell. They seem to be kind of out on Sewell, but if he's there, maybe they still take him. Maybe they felt like they like him, but they're willing to get either Chase or Sewell. That's what I would do. I would take either Chase or Sewell at 6. Mail it in. You already kind of got the trade down value. Go best player available there between those two. I've kind of talked about why Pitts maybe doesn't make so much sense for them, as great as he is. From Stuart, would you be able to do a film analysis on my own high school film for like a 100,000 subscriber special? That would be embarrassing. I was not a good football player. I don't think I have the Huddle access to that anymore. So that would be funny as hell. That's a great question, and I appreciate that, but I don't believe I have that access anymore, unfortunately. Okay, we got an international listener here, I think. Joshka. Hopefully I'm saying this right. Joska Claypool? We're going to go with that. Joska Claypool. Hey, Marcus, really appreciate all the great content. Thank you. Do you think the Vikings should pay Danielle Hunter or trade him? Personally, I think they should definitely pay him, but hypothetically speaking, if they were to trade him, where would be the best fit and what would be his value? Best fit, I don't know. Whoever needs an edge, maybe Indy comes to mind with a little cap space there. But the thing with Hunter is he is coming off a really weird back issue. And I don't think he has that much leverage in a holdout situation to demand he gets paid, because I think whether you're talking about someone trading for him or the Vikings paying him, it's like, can we see you get back first? Can we see you come back on the field and, play like a top 5 edge rusher again? Because it's kind of weird timing that after you didn't play all year and you've got this weird back injury that you want this guaranteed money and this new contract, he just doesn't have that leverage. So it's kind of a messy situation. If I'm the Vikings, there's no way I trade him, because you're not going to get even a first-round pick for him for a guy that's going to get paid that much money. He's going to get $25, $26 million. The team that trades for him has to give him that contract, and you don't even know if he can stay healthy. So for me, I think he's got to almost play this year on his current contract. I don't think Hunter has much of an option. And the new CBA makes it hard for these guys to hold out. So I do think if he stays healthy and gets back to that top 5 level, obviously you would want to pay him if you're Minnesota, but if he's still unhappy, then you get into maybe a first and a second, maybe he is a 2 first-round players to a team like Indianapolis, but that's a lot. It's a lot to give up for a guy that you then got to turn around and pay that much money. From Alex Gray, as a 49ers fan who really doesn't like Fields, what can I watch to sell myself more on the inevitability when we draft him at 3? Well, I would just say that he's such a great fit. I mean, his problems to me are the processing and getting through the first read, which I think he'll be able to grow at the next level. It's just not there right now. But with Kyle Shanahan, honestly, his first read is going to be open 90% of the time, especially when they use his mobility to get even more creative there. His first read is going to be open 90% of the time. And when it isn't, if he just runs and gets you 8 yards, I think you can live with that. So his accuracy, his mobility, his kind of ability to stay durable and be this elite running threat as well with Shanahan, who I think can do some creative stuff there in the run game with a good run game coordinator. I mean, I don't think there's a very good chance that he busts for the Niners with those traits and that accuracy. From Raging Crocodile, I got another Seahawks-related question. Do you think that the Legion of Boom would be successful in 2021? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know that they were a little more mugging, a little more aggressive and violent, and they would probably get flagged a little more in today's defense, but most of the rules were still in place. You still couldn't hit guys after 5 yards, which is the big one at that point in time. I mean, the Legion of Boom was also great because of their pass rush and Bobby Wagner and just the depth in that secondary. The one thing I will say is that the Shanahan offense is very systematically designed to attack those deep, kind of the deep sort of, what would you call that? I guess the deep third, but in an untraditional sense, because they're always coming from the other side or they're coming from the tight end position. Whereas if you're attacking that deep third with just your outside receivers, it doesn't work as well. So a lot of these modern concepts are very well designed to attack that defense, which might put some stress on the defense. It might not be as good, but I still think it would be an outstanding elite defense. From Royals Are Awesome, do I believe that Baker is worse with Odell on the field? This is an interesting debate because he did play better after Odell got hurt. To me, it was almost fortunate timing because Baker's in this new system with a familiar receiver, and I think that at the beginning they were not able to get into the offense that Stefanski wanted to run in a lot of ways. I think Baker was almost zeroing in on Odell in a little bit, or even the play calling, they felt so inclined to get Odell going. But I think they had so much success post injury there for Odell, and I think they really came into their own as far as understanding themselves and what they can do, and I think Baker got really comfortable in that offense. So I think now that is established, then you put Odell back in. I think it's actually kind of this beautiful way of going about it, and I think he's going to be pretty awesome this year, assuming he's healthy and back to his old self, which is not a guarantee, but I don't think Baker is like necessarily better without Odell, but I do think that there was a lot of things that got set in motion that helped him out with that Odell injury. What NFL division has the best QBs from Lions? That's a great question. It's not the North, NFC North. It's not the NFC East. NFC South, no, because you got a couple teams there with quarterback issues. NFC West, you got Russ, Kyler, soon to be Justin Fields most likely, and Stafford. So that's obviously the favorite right now. AFC North's got Baker, Lamar, Burrow. I think one more year of those three guys taking another step up, and you might be able to throw them in that conversation, and Big Ben's. But the NFC West, I think, still has it there. AFC East, I'm not taking that group with, they have a chance. They have a chance with, obviously, Josh Allen. If Zach Wilson can be a stud. Tua, if he takes a step up. And then Cam is kind of the last leg there. They're pretty far behind, but they have a chance to get up there. AFC South ain't it with Tannehill, Wentz, Deshaun, and then Lawrence. I mean, I wrote them off, but, if Watson is back, Lawrence is what we think he is, Tannehill's a good third, and then if Wentz can bounce back, then that's actually a really good group. So they're in the mix. And then AFC West, you got Mahomes, you got Herbert, and then Carr and Locke. So pretty top-heavy there. But I think the NFC West takes it with some close competitors. From Loomer Cooper, after this free agency, what would I say the new top market prices are for every position? Quarterback, 40 mil. Running back, I think it's still 12, 13 mil. Aaron Jones kind of took a discount. But even for like Saquon, I think he'll probably reset that thing and get like 15, 16, get like Christian McCaffrey money. So let's say 15 there for running back. Receiver is, let's see, we haven't had, Devontae Adams is going to reset this market here, I think, this summer. DeAndre Hopkins, his extension was technically like 24 per, so similar to like an edge rusher, but I would say like 22, 23 for a receiver. Tight ends like 15, 16. Tackles up to like 23 mil. Guard center, you're looking at 13, 14 mil. Interior defensive line, Aaron Donald, it was kind of a while ago, but like Chris Jones, it's like 21, 22 mil for interior D-line, unless you're Aaron Donald, who's probably worth like 27. Edge is up to like 26, something crazy. Linebackers low, it's like 12, 13 mil, 14, 15 max. And then safety, if you're an elite of the elite, Budda Baker got like 15, so maybe 16, 17 mil for. We'll see what Jamal Adams comes in at when he's done, but that's every position. Not so sure about kickers and punters or fullbacks. All right, from Luke Olander, in your opinion on the edge defenders in this class, was Gregory Rousseau's poor performance enough to reconsider him as my number one edge? Yeah, definitely. I don't have a clear-cut number one edge because Jalen Phillips is the best player. And then I like Kwity Paye, but I don't love his upside. He's the safest option. And then Gregory Rousseau is kind of risky like Jalen Phillips, but because I don't know if he's a great player, I think Rousseau and Phillips have great upside. So it's tough. I'm between those three, but it definitely throws a wrinkle in things. I mean, he did have an uninspiring pro day. He did still run like a 4.7, which is still a good time. I don't think he had like this horrific combine. I think everyone loves to jump on Gregory Rousseau. I didn't think he had a horrific combine. His 3-cone wasn't great, but a 7.5 3-cone for a dude that big, it's obviously not great, but I don't think it was like a horrific combine. It just wasn't like, oh my God, this is an incredible freak. But to me, his length and strength is his best asset. So, I don't know. He's still edge one for me, but it is definitely, the gap is closing. From Spencer, can you explain the difference in scheme fits for quarterbacks like West Coast, etc.? So, it's tough because every passing game has its own different little wrinkles, but really I would say there's two broad scheme fits for quarterbacks. So you've got really your sort of what I would describe as pro style / Shanahan offense, which is run the ball and take really well designed deep shots in the play action or just in general passing game. So there's a lot of offenses, Tennessee, Minnesota, San Francisco, that don't ask the quarterback to, like every passing play, drop back, diagnose a defense, go through a concept, first, second read, make the correct decision, throw quick, get rid of the ball quick, have the accuracy all over the field. That's more of your West Coast, whereas you've got all of these Shanahan offenses that the general theme is very old school, which is not going to have a ton of quick game. That's going to be sort of our run game, and then we want an explosive passing game that can really scheme up first reads. So if you're in that type of offense, you're not, if like in Justin Fields' case, that's why he's such a great fit, because if you're a little worried about his processing and that kind of stuff, those offenses are going to do that work for you because your offensive coordinator is kind of doing that for you. The scheme's kind of doing it for you. Then you go to like your West Coast offenses. Kansas City, Carolina with Joe Brady is a great example of this. Pittsburgh, very West Coast. I would say Dallas, Las Vegas, very West Coast. Very much, we need our quarterback to dissect a coverage, understand the concept, and know who's coming open. Read 1, read 2, read 3. That's why he's in a lot of these offenses. You see a Derek Carr, Dak Prescott, Teddy Bridgewater, who are very sharp, kind of methodical passers. Whereas with your Shanahan offenses, you're getting Justin Fields, you're getting Ryan Tannehill. You know? You're getting the Packers draft Jordan Love because he's kind of in that system. So that's kind of the broad scale. And then, my God, you split that into two, and then you've got tons of different schemes and trees and different stuff that you're looking for. But I hope that explained it well. From Eric Halverson, why do so many people think Cam Sample is a D tackle? Maybe because he did a lot of that at the Senior Bowl, but he's definitely an edge. He's definitely an edge, so that's poor analysis by other people, in my opinion. He's clearly an edge player. That's all he did at Tulane. And yeah, he can stunt inside and play 3-tech on third down, but he's not a defensive tackle full time. Absolutely not. From Brandon Cosby, as someone who's a fan of Gregory Rousseau, I'm curious what you see that makes me think he's got the upside to be the number one edge. So we kind of just talked about Gregory Rousseau, but I think like Arik Armstead's a great example. I don't think he has this elite, amazing upside, but I know he's going to be a great run defender. He is going to be like just the way he extends his arms and can control offensive tackles as a freshman who was like an athlete coming out of high school. He has such a baseline of play strength that just gives you such a great foundation. And then I really do believe if he gets in the right system that, he's not a full-time edge, he's not a full-time D tackle, that uses him versatilely in a versatile role, just like Arik Armstead is. I think he can be somewhere between Armstead and Calais Campbell as a guy that does rush the passer, maybe not perennially elite at it. No, he doesn't have the get-off and the juice and necessarily the bend, but I think he can win as a pass rusher. I think he can be a 50, 60 pressure dude and be an elite run defender, which is a very valuable player. So that's what I like about him. I feel very good, despite the fact that he was so young and didn't show the elite pass rush traits or whatever. I believe in the character. I mean, his interview with PFF really sold me. I think he is going to continue to develop his craft. So, I don't know. That's the sell on Gregory Rousseau. He's not as polished as Kwity Paye. He's not going to be probably as good of a pass rusher in year one as Kwity Paye. And he's not as good of a football player as Jalen Phillips, but you've got the injury questions with Jalen Phillips. Okay, last question here from Raphael. It's a long question here. Let's say you're a GM and you have a total of 7 picks, 1 from each round in the draft. What are you hoping to draft? Of course, you want superstar players. But realistically, where would you break down value-wise in a draft? So first picks, superstar player. Okay, this is kind of a tough question. Man, that's just it's such an organic process. I think you kind of pick up on it in little spurts. Like, you got to take the appropriate risks. You do need star players. But like I talked about with the Saints, for example, like in this podcast, the second round, we got Michael Thomas. We don't need to take Tamorian Terry, who could potentially be an elite number 1 receiver because he's such a freak athlete. Maybe we want Amon-Ra St. Brown, who we feel really good about, is a guy that can be a long-time starter for us, fits our system, never going to need to be highly paid, but just a glue guy for our offense. You can't sit down and say, here's our plan. We got these 7 picks. Round 2, we're going high upside. Round 4, we're going safety. You got to be organic. You got to be flexible. You got to understand your roster, your scheme. It's not as simple as round 1, we're going upside, because it never is. It's never that simple. Every team's different. Every draft is different. Every player is different. That's the beauty of the NFL, man. So that's kind of my overall philosophy on that. And I think the NFL would agree. Okay, let's just make sure I don't have any unmissed questions here. Oh, one came in while we were recording from REA Beats. What do I think of Miami traded up from pick? Why do I think they traded up from pick 12? What should they do at pick 6? I did ask that question. I think we kind of answered it earlier, kind of on the fly. I don't know, it's weird. I've heard that they don't love Sewell, which really doesn't make the trade-up make sense to me because they're not guaranteed to get Jamar Chase at 6. But maybe they wanted a quote-unquote elite prospect. They saw an opportunity to get an extra first-round pick and said this is too good to be true. They looked at it more as a 3-team trade than moving down and then trading up. But I will say that, there's a world where that doesn't make a ton of sense for them. Like, if they don't like Sewell at all, and Chase goes 5, I don't know if Pitts is obviously an upgrade for them, but that's not, to me, the best use of resources for them, which has been an issue with me for a while, especially if you traded up to do that. Because I love Mike Gesicki, and I think that's the role he plays, but I don't know if I want Mike Gesicki and Kyle Pitts, because those guys are very, very... Mike Gesicki is the closest comp for Kyle Pitts, because they both played, like 9% of their snaps actually as a tight end, because they're not tight ends. They're versatile weapons. So it's not that Pitts wouldn't start or be a superstar for them. It's just, it's an interesting use of resources. So if you don't like Sewell and you can't get Chase, you're risking basically giving up a first-round pick to end up with a Waddle or a Rashawn Slater or something that you probably were going to get at 12 anyway, or Devontae Smith. But I don't know. We'll see how that all plays out. If they still take Sewell, if they get Sewell or Chase, I like the trade-up. If they don't, I would question it. So we will end with there. Great podcast. Thank you for watching. This was a lot of fun to record. I enjoyed today's topic. Last note here, please pull out your phones, set a reminder for draft night if you haven't done that already. We'll see you back here. Thank you for watching. Hit that like button, comment if you're here on YouTube. If you're listening to this on Spotify, please do leave a review. Really helps me out. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you guys for the next video up on YouTube. Peace.